to the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for May 28th, 2024. Council members, elected body president, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Council member Christine Hall, Council member David Johnson. I had this. Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, Councilmember William Morthland. I'm Randy Knight, the City Administrator, along with City Attorney David Davidson and City Clerk Nancy Long. Purpose of committee meetings are for city departments to convey information to Mayor and City Council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda. By the ordinance, the committee consists of the elected body as well as the City Administrator, and the City Administrator serves as the chair. Committee meetings, this is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while we certainly welcome members of the public, we do not generally take comments or questions during these meetings unless specifically authorized by Mayor and Council. Comments and questions are received at regular City Council meetings on the second and fourth Monday of each month. And on the fifth Monday of each month in open forum, we always encourage residents to visit our city online platforms if you have any questions or need information. And we also recommend that residents utilize the Roswell app or city web service portal to report issues or concerns, as well as visit roswell365.com for a calendar of events. The first item on the agenda for the evening is the approval of the minutes for the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for April 23rd, 2024. We'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Morthland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And we will note for the record that under community development, we do not show any action items. Under transportation, as listed on the agenda, item number 2, consideration to approve a construction contract for the State Route 140 Landscape Medians Project. Mr. Littlefield and Mr. Nichols. Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll do it the old-fashioned way. All right, SR 140 Landscape Medians, which is Holcomb Bridge Road. The median project to construct 3 landscape median islands on Holcomb Bridge Road at Holcomb Woods Parkway, one at Champions Green and the other one at Steeplechase Drive. Medians will be 14 feet wide and range in length from 120 feet to 200 feet long. The landscaping in the newly constructed medians will include shrubs, fern grasses, and perennial ground covers. The bid openings actually happened today at 2 p.m., so we haven't verified any of the information. The apparent low bidder is SH Creel Contracting. The bids came in at $147,000 for the low bid. We had 2 bidders. The next bidder bid $250,000 roughly. So if everything goes well and the references check out, we will go with the SH Creel Contracting. We will bring all of those changes, if there are any changes, such as we go with the next bidder, we'll bring it to the June 10th council meeting. And we're doing this just to prevent any delays so that we can get these built by the end of the year and get them planted. That's what the rush is. If you look on here, the red dots indicate where the actual median islands will go with this project. There are other locations in yellow. You can see the 6 other locations located along Holcomb Bridge Road that we're proposing other landscape medians. The reason why we showed you that is the funding is in the amount of $497,700. Bids came in at $147,000, so with mayor and council's approval, we'd like to move forward with designing more of these islands. The reason why we only let 3 of them was because we weren't sure exactly how much the bids would come in at, so we didn't want to risk having to go back out to bid. So we let 3 of them, we felt safe with that. The estimate was $147,000, or $145,000 with the engineer's estimate, and they did come in at $147,000, so real close to our estimates. So with your approval, we would like to move forward, bringing this item to council. If there are any changes, we'll make sure to notify everyone ahead of time, but then also make those changes at the council meeting.
All right, Mayor Wilson.
Jeff, Greg, good to see you. Long time no see, Greg. Jeff, thank you for your leadership on this. Thanks for moving this forward at such an urgent pace. Got a question for David and for you. Can you pull back up the yellow spots? So we've got 6 identified spots that we still are left to do. We've got 3 on this particular contract.
Yes.
Based upon your budget, if those same numbers were to hold true, you basically could take care of those other 6 in rough approximate numbers. I know I'm crunching a little tight on you, and I apologize. Do we have the ability, if this contractor is awarded the contract after you get a chance to vet the contract, do we have the ability, David and Jeff, to go back to them and say, we would like to move forward with the other 6 as well, based upon the pricing that you used for this contract?
I believe the contract would expire because we still have to design these and then get the encroachment agreement through GDOT. But we could work with legal to see if we could extend the timeline and if the contractor would be amicable to do that.
Because I'm sure I don't want to speak for the council, but my assumption would be is that this would be highly supported and well-received if we could move forward on all the medians there on the east side of our city on 140. And since you've got a plan laid out, and if we can afford it and move forward on doing it now, I think we would love to do that. But I'll let the council address that.
Councilmember Hall.
I would second that and support that. And also, I do have one additional question. So this quote is for constructing and also providing the landscape material and filling in the landscaping for both parts?
For the 3 islands.
For the 3 islands. My question is, as we define our beautification plan for Roswell and basically align and make everything so that it flows with similar types of materials, would we have the opportunity to change what materials they're using if they don't fit into what our plan is?
As long as it would meet GDOT requirements, so they would have to look at what we plant. There might be a slight cost variation. Different plants cost different amounts of money, but I mean, I'm sure it would be something that GDOT would look at and make sure that it fit into what they would allow in the median.
Can I ask a follow-up? Will these look as good as the medians on the west side, if not better?
The existing concrete medians?
The medians that we have on the west side of 92, on 92.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, they'll look better.
Okay, perfect.
Councilmember Beeson.
2 questions. First of which, I know with the previous medians that we had discussed, I made a request through RDOT if we could possibly look into bioswaling. Did we ever get an official response from GDOT?
They were not in favor of it.
Boo.
I know. And they also made us put breaks in the actual median, so you have a segment, and then you have like a short break where water can flow through on pavement, but.
Okay, so we're still gonna have bricks built into that as well? Would that decrease permeability, or would it decrease or increase permeability?
Breaks, not breaks.
Oh, breaks. I thought you said bricks.
Like, actually, no, breaks, so that there's like an open spot where water
They
can
wanna
flow
flow
from
water through it,
like
okay.
one side through to the other.
For reference for other who were not involved in that discussion, bioswelling medians would capture the water into the median itself. You would typically have higher, thicker grasses, and then you would have some sort of detention that pulls the water in. It decreases the amount of sitting water that's on your road, but also it would capture For example, liquids that come out of the vehicles themselves as they're doing stormwater runoff, it would capture it there as opposed to spilling into our waterways. So ideally, would be more environmentally friendly, but if it doesn't comply with GDOT, because it's a GDOT road, we tried. And
Yeah,
then
I think they're
additionally,
worried about
what was
their- I
that?
think they're worried about their subgrade with water sitting there. That,
They don't want it to undermine underneath the asphalt. Got it. My additional question was, following up on Councilmember Hall's question about the plantings themselves, will we be able to prioritize native plantings within those, or native species?
yes.
Perfect. That's my only request. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or comments regarding this item?
I have a
Yes, Mayor
question.
Wilson. Yes, sir.
How does the rest of the council feel about potentially moving this up?
All in. Very much all in.
Okay.
No issues whatsoever.
All right.
We'll see if we can make a time frame work to do that.
Let the record state, Mr. Chairman, that Councilmember Sells is not present from the east side, would be absolutely opposed to this plan. For the record.
All right. With that notation, of course, that we, if possible, via legal and transportation, if we can move further or move forward with additional locations as budget allows, we would take that into consideration. Yes, Councilmember Johnson.
Do you think we would know that in 2 weeks on our next council meeting?
Possibly. We would also need contractor concurrence with that as well, because they would have to agree to the additional work and
Okay.
the price that,
Same price.
yes. So there's a little bit, I don't know if they would have to get back with us,
How long will, sorry,
Mayor Wilson.
how long will it take to vet the contract?
By June 10th, we'll have it vetted. We have to check references, things of that nature, the municipalities that they've worked with, since we haven't worked with them, just to make sure that, they do the work that they say they do.
And follow, so while you're simultaneously vetting, can you also be working on the potential of
Oh, yeah.
potentially letting the other 6 to them as well?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we have to design those too, so we have to get with the designer and make sure that we can get them designed ahead of what they would need.
I think the council will be anxiously awaiting your work in 13 days.
We'll let you know by June 10th, before June 10th, about, what's able to be done with those other six.
Thanks for getting this done, Jeff.
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to move this forward. Motion, Councilmember Johnson. Yes.
I'd like to amend the motion.
Amend the motion.
Definitely
Requested.
100% support the motion, would ask though for the amendment of asking for the other 6 pieces to be done as well.
No.
Well, I got a motion.
All right, sure, yes, go ahead. You accept the amendment to the motion?
I accept, Randy's amendment to the motion, to add the other 6 islands to the possible
When you
contract.
read the item.
For formality, since I'm the chair and I do not vote, Mayor Wilson's amendment, I believe, would be in order.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Mayor Wilson.
You'd rather support Randy than me.
Oh, I definitely support Randy over you. I'm just kidding.
Let the record state,
Yeah.
Judge Johnson supports the city administrator and the mayor.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, I thought Randy, when he's made the motion, included the 6
All right,
islands.
so we have the motion with the accepted amendment by Mayor Wilson. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, accepted amendment by Mayor Wilson, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you, passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Nailed it.
The next item, item number 3, is listed under Transportation. Consideration to award the FY 2024 road resurfacing contract to Summit Construction and Development LLC, bid 24-100-A. Mr. Littlefield.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. A little bit of background on this. We received 8 bids for the road resurfacing contract that were submitted by the deadline of May 10th, 2024. Summit Construction and Development LLC is the low bidder at $3,262,441. Advertised road list included all available local LMIG and supplemental LMIG funding. If you remember, that was the money that kind of came in late from the state, which was the local road assistance in the amount of about $1.2 million. So we added that to the contract, and that's why the contract is actually coming relatively late in the year compared to what we would like to let these contracts at. The list of roads to be resurfaced was approved by Mayor and Council on January 23rd of 2024. In additions to the list were approved on March 26, 2024, and that's that local road assistant funds that I mentioned earlier. Due to low bidding being below the available budget, staff recommends adding Scott Road to the previously approved list. The bids came in about $900,000 less than our construction estimate. A very good thing for the city. We recommend Scott Road primarily because it has a PCI rating of 22, but we're also spending a lot of time out there patching potholes and a lot of money. Our staff goes out there often. There is a school out there, and it would be ideal if we get that done before school's back in session. They just ended last week, so it would be a good time to get that road done. We estimate that road with the quantities that were bid, that it would cost about $890,000, which leaves us a little bit of contingent funds of about $10,000 left over. This is just a list of the roads that were approved. A little bit of milling and resurfacing, and you can see the different funds. So you have the city funds on the left-hand side, which is the large table. Then you have the LMIG money, which is the bottom left. Then you have the local road assistant money, which is right at the top. And then we're also doing a little bit of rejuvenation with city funds. The rejuvenation just helps our asphalt last a little longer, so that theoretically we won't have to go back as soon as we normally would to resurface these roads. It's just a map of the roads I just discussed. The blue, or dark blue I should say, is the city-funded roads. The red is the GDOT LMIG, and then the lighter blue is the GDOT local road assistance funds. Staff recommend awarding the resurfacing contract to Summit Construction. I will tell you, we have not worked with Summit as a resurfacing contractor, but they are a contractor that we've worked with in the past, and we're currently working with them at the King Road and 92 project. They'll actually be resurfacing some of that later this week during nights. So they are very familiar with resurfacing, and we do recommend going with the low bid of $3,262,441. Funds are available from the following accounts, and you can see the LMIG money at the top, then there's the local road assistance, and then the third line item is the city funds, totaling $4.23 million. If approved, we'll bring this to council on June 10th, and then we will hold the pre-construction meeting to get this thing going.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, obviously, thanks for highlighting Scott Road, that approximate $900,000 project, because you've got basically $1 million between your total available and your bid between Summit. Thanks for choosing Scott Road. Just to confirm, all the roads here that you've chosen are based upon PCI ratings, which is part of your new process of picking roads to be repaid. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And thanks for bringing that process to the city and bringing kind of a very logical process that I think will serve the city in the long term. The second question I have is just simply about the bid itself. So looking at the bids, you've got a significant mean here around 3.8 of all the bidders, and you've got a high and a low. Summit obviously is the low at 3.2, and CW is the high at 4.4, but everybody else coming in at a fairly tight congruency. What kind of vetting do we do on that when we have a bid that comes in basically $500,000 below our mean?
We look at the actual unit price to see if it is a logical unit price for the item. We also look at, this particular contractor is already in the area, so they're already working in Roswell. They're not doing a lot of GDOT work. Like CW Matthews is the contractor that's out on 9. They're quite busy. They're quite busy all the time. Now, they own the asphalt plant, so you would think that they would be cheaper, but they are busy, and GDOT's their primary customer. I think Summit is trying to get into the resurfacing business so that they can bid on packages like this in the future. And so I think that's where you got your kind of cost savings, is they're already in the area, they're already working in Roswell, and I think they want to continue working in the same area. There's a little bit of, savings in just that fact of mobilization and things like that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson, and I'm sorry.
Jeff, you mentioned the bid went out on May 10th, which is kind of late in the year. The new budget process, when would you expect to send out a bid? If we move the budget to January 1st to December 31st, calendar year budget.
Ideally, we would be out in about February, as soon as we get the LMIG money, the typical GDOT money, and we know what that number is, we would go out to bid. And, we would be forecasting it pretty much November, getting our list ready. And as soon as we know what the LMIG money is, we would be going out, hopefully within February, March. Typically, paving season starts usually about April 15th, so we want to be ready so that we can be on the ground April 15th.
Thank you. Councilmember,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a follow-up to Councilmember David Johnson's question? So can you talk about the impact to the city of being able to have a bid let in February versus May? What does that mean in real terms?
Yeah, as you see here, we did maybe not get lucky, but we got lucky in the fact that it's so late in the year. You can see those other bids are much higher, because their calendar is full. When their calendar is full, you'll get bids, but they bake in things like liquidated damages for being late, because they know they're not going to be able to get to these roads at a certain time. So if we have it for 120 days, and then after 120 days, we have liquidated damages of just, for instance, $1,000 a day or whatever, they will bake in how many days they think they're going to be late into the unit costs. So if we let it early in the year, we get on the calendar early, theoretically, we would get a better price.
So just as a follow-up, so in your professional background experience, you don't like being in the business of luck, do you?
No, I hate it.
So going to changing the fiscal year, being able to let a contract in February allows you to be much more in the planning process and to enhance your opportunities of getting better pricing and being able to schedule better for the year in terms of what the repaving is going to look like.
Yeah, it works out well for us as far as, especially resurfacing, it works out very well because it falls in line with GDOT's funding that they provide the municipalities. So we would be able to have the contract ready. We would know what our funds will be from the city's standpoint, but then also just be ready for what GDOT's a formula, so we pretty much anticipate roughly what we're going to get so we can know how many miles of road we can do.
So from your professional judgment, is this a financially good thing for the transportation department that serves the city?
Oh, and I think it definitely is a good thing, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Jeff, just a couple of questions. On the section on Old Alabama Road from Riverside Road to Holcomb Bridge Road, two things. We are just doing the east side of Old Alabama Road because the city of Atlanta did the west side. Is that correct?
That's correct, until we hit Marketplace, and that's where they stopped and went up Marketplace. So then we will do the road in its entirety up to Holcomb Bridge.
Okay. And because we recently did that section of Old Alabama Road, and we're doing that just so that they're both on the same schedule and
Yes,
both
ma'am.
sides-
It'll keep us on the same cycle, so 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we won't have to do just one side of the road and we'd just be completely off cycle. And it's in need, honestly. It is needed. It's not in the greatest of shape.
And then, just to follow up, we had discussed the condition of the road underneath 400, and you had mentioned that when the contractor's out there doing Old Alabama, you're going to have them wrap around towards Riverside Road underneath 400, because that area is impassable by vehicles other than cars.
On.
Going down Old Alabama as you
Okay,
wrap
I
under.
know where you are. Yeah, we can look at that.
Yep, that will be done as part of Riverside Corridor, but that's more than it's probably 2 years out. So we had discussed that they would wrap around underneath 400 there by Don White Park. and go ahead and top that off
Yeah, we can.
so that it's not dangerous the way it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. One last plug on Scott Road. Thank you so much for the recommendation on that, Director Littlefield. About a year and a half ago, it might have been 2, we rush jobbed, and I know, Councilmember Johnson, you weren't here yet, and I can't remember, Mason, I don't think you were yet either, but we rush jobbed the lighting on Scott Road because we saw the importance of our school districts, our 2 public schools, they're high schools in the city of Roswell, and making sure that there's a safety element there. And was it Mustafa that did that work?
Yes.
Yeah, so he hustled up and got all those lights put in, and paving that road, I think, is a perfect fit to finish the sentiment of all this council, but certainly what we were going after to begin with, although not identifying the paving, but I think it's a great place for that. I think it also says a lot for what we feel, how we feel about our schools in the city, the welcome mat, if you will, that they're lit and the streets are paved well, and we're open for business in our schools as well. So thank you for that. I'm full support of that choice.
We can check the crosswalks as well, makes them stand out a little more.
Excellent.
Pedestrian safety.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion moving this item forward. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
For the record, I'll be abstaining just for the vote here. I hope to vote on it in the next council meeting. I need to confirm one outstanding contract to make sure that I don't have overlapping work with this contractor. But
All right.
for the time being, I'll be abstaining.
All right, thank you. So the motion passes with the 1 abstention. Thank you very much. And under Public Works, thank you, gentlemen. Under Public Works, item number 4, consideration to award a contract to multiple consultants for the city standby general engineering services. Mr. Watson. Yes, Councilmember.
Before we enter the item, I will be recusing myself for the entirety of the item. Not only does my engineering firm provide a number of these services, we work with at least 6 of those who are proposed for the reward, so I will be removing myself.
All right, thank you, duly noted. Mayor Wilson.
Councilor Beeson, it is certainly commendable that you recuse yourself with regularity, but we certainly as a body trust your judgment to adjudicate these matters in a fair and equivocal process. And I say that as the mayor, and I'm sure that your colleagues would join me in that sentiment as well, that I'd find no need for you to have to take yourself out of these votes.
Well, I appreciate the trust of the elected body. I do not want to beg a question of impropriety in the event that I make any motion, comment, or grant any money to any firms that I have close contracts with, as I do have a gain to stand financially.
I, for one, will not accuse you of impropriety on any matter financially.
I appreciate that you won't, but I just want to, your girl never wants to go to court. So if there's any goal that I have in being elected office, it's staying out of the color orange. So with that, I'll be recusing, but I appreciate your comment.
All right.
Motion to dismiss Councilmember Johnson. SEC violation.
Seconded. Thirded, fourthed, fifth. Exactly.
All right. Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. I appreciate it. So just to get back everybody on the same track, the item before you tonight is to award standby general engineering contracts to a number of consultants, all of which are listed in your packet. And just for everybody, for all the council, the purpose of these contracts are to have qualified consultants with experience in general engineering and design services, as well as a variety of additional professional services to assist the city in a whole host of projects that we have. And so what I would like to do right now is just kind of give an overview and kind of show you the scope of these contracts. So first, here's an overview of the current city standby contracts. And the majority of the contracts, not all of them, but a majority are actually awarded by a single service area. And so just as an example, I've listed 3 departments here. Environmental Public Works has 5 contracts or 5 different service areas where we have a total of 17 different contracts. In RDOT, there's 1 service area for survey where we have 3 contracts. And then under Rec and Parks, we have 1 service area, which is park planning and infrastructure, which we have 3 total contracts. So you can see You've got 7 different service areas there, and they're spread across the city. Now, this does not include contracts for like T-SPOST or the transportation or for the project or program management. So this is just kind of show you what the city has right now. What staff is proposing is that we put out an RFP that had 21 different service areas under general engineering services. And so the idea was to obtain qualifications from a whole host of consultants in the industry that have the ability to provide their skills and their qualifications on these different service areas. And so basically the city has a much larger pool of consultants to be able to choose from, just depending on the project. So we put the RFP out. We got 24 consultants who bid on them. And all those submissions were reviewed and ranked, and we ranked them on 5 different areas. That was general firm information, project management approach, the professional qualifications, experience on similar projects, as well as our references. We then put together a committee of 5 different members from across the city, 2 from EPW, 1 from transportation, 1 from Rec and Parks, and 1 from community development. And after all the members came and made a recommendation, we sorted through and made sure that there weren't any consultants that were disqualified or should be disqualified. And then we're bringing that recommendation to you all. But I would like to be known that this contract may be utilized by any department or division within the city, including but not limited to EPW, Rec and Parks, Transportation, Community Development. So the idea is, this is, I think, a first for the city, that we're actually going to put a contract that has service areas out there that's the entire city has the ability to utilize them. And with that, I'll take any questions from council.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Brian. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Well, sir, how are you doing?
Short and sweet. I love where you're going with this. Thank you, city. This is a great thing. Very good thing for the city. Let me ask you a question. If you're looking for innovation, right, among these vendors, where would that fall from your perspective underneath the project management approach, professional qualification, experience on similar projects?
So under the experience, sorry, I had to think about that, but under experience, when we asked for past projects that they had done, one of the questions that we asked on the past project was there anything that was innovative that was done on that project? Oftentimes, there's not a lot of innovative stuff. It's just whether or not the consultant can actually do the work. But the focus of this was not necessarily, let's look at just innovation. The focus of this is, let's make sure that we have enough consultants that can provide their skill set across a wide variety of service areas.
I think it's a great idea. So glad you're bringing it up for us to review and hopefully pass. Great stuff. As one of the leaders in the city, we'll continue to kind of ask and request along those lines of being innovative, and how do we inculcate that in the culture from standpoint not just internally but also externally with our vendors, and how do we measure that or garner ourselves to get those kind of results?
So in my opinion, having been this on both sides now, part of it's a little bit hard on this side. So really what we want to do is we want to be able to make that selection. Once we have those available vendors, then if a project comes up, and let's just go back to the service area. Let's just say, since you like stormwater, let's pick up a stormwater project.
100%.
Okay? We have a stormwater project that's out there. We actually have the ability of going to those selected vendors who are under stormwater, and we can present them a problem, present them a different project that we have, and we can say, come present your ideas. How can you be innovative in the project that we have? And so we can, as opposed to having to go out to the free world and get all those bids, we can actually utilize the existing contractors that we have and see what they can bring in that. And we've actually used that in a number of projects already. The problem is when we have our contracts right now and they're focused to one service area, let's say we're doing a stormwater project and for whatever reason, a historic preservation component gets added to that. We don't have that as a service area right now, and we don't have consultants. With this, we're able to actually say, okay, what vendors or what consultants do we have that actually touch all the service areas that we think that we're going to have on a project? So we can go through that avenue, and let's say we're going through a project and something new pops up, we can can already go to our pre-qualified consultants in another service area so that we're not having to go back out to the RFP process.
How do you, Brian, how do you manage a project where, somebody has met stormwater qualifications, right, based upon the state, feds, and your guidelines? But there may be an issue of cost and how that cost gets distributed, say, between the private party that's doing the project, and sometimes how those project costs get shifted silently towards, i.e. the city. How are you able to manage that so that the costs stay fairly attributed towards the private party, rather than getting shifted towards the city? How can you manage that?
Is this a city project or a private project?
Private project.
So this would not be for private projects unless we wanted to utilize a consultant here to review a private project.
Let me raise that issue then, good. So this for the air atmosphere, I would say that there's probably been times in the past where projects had come through the Community Development Department where Public Works did not have full oversight over the stormwater equation, which you do now, thanks to this council making sure that the stormwater equation stayed fully within, I think, the rights of Public Works. But you look at a project, a private project, making sure that the costs are distributed in a way that the city does not suffer the cost of the project. Do we have that wherewithal and capability to do that now?
We actually do have in-house capabilities of doing that, and we're doing that now. If a project came through and we wanted to bring more expertise on, it's one of the reasons that I added cost estimating, peer review as a service area, so that if we wanted to get a second opinion, we'd be able to do that.
To that point, for example, like, I know there's great expertise in your department, I know you have great expertise, but you're not always able to engineer a product, whereas a private party hires an engineer, an architect, et cetera, to design a project. Your job is basically to approve that project and make modifications to it, but it's not necessarily to create the project or redesign the project.
Or actually do the engineering, that's correct.
Actually do the engineering. So, but I understand sometimes there's a need for that to fill in that gap because the private party's paying for it. They've got expertise to do that. And my question is, how do we fill in that gap to create a solution, not only for the city, but also for the private party? And not just get stuck with, hey, this is what we got, and we say yes or no to it.
I think that these contracts will allow us greater flexibility depending on the problem that comes through.
Okay.
If it's stormwater, I feel pretty good about my current staff, but if something came through on a different project, might want to get some outside help just to get a second opinion.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, good question. All right. Further comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Johnson.
Mr. Watson, are you able to give, like, will this save taxpayers money versus, instead of Parks and Rec using a survey or Public Works using a survey and Transportation using a survey, it's all one, not siloed, but, it's all together. Is this in theory going to save us money?
I would say not in theory. It will save the taxpayers money, and it will also save not only staff time, but mayor and council time in being able to act more nimbly. Right now, it's just, not that we can't act fast now, this just speeds up the process. This gives us a lot more flexibility just depending on what that project is, or the need.
Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to address Councilmember Johnson's comments. Obviously, Councilmember Johnson, you are part of an effort, of a whole-scale effort by the city to reorganize and to break down silos. So this is just one piece of that equation where the city has been in that enterprise for 2.5 years and will continue so as long as the elected body stays in concert with the lines of realignment, reorganization, and continue to break down silos. And the silo question is a question that is exactly pertinent to the history of the city, whereas different departments were basically doing their own things, and there was a lack of leverage being brought of best knowledge, best practices, and unanimity of force inside the organization. So, David, you're a party to that. That's been occurring because, and I think you've been involved in that. So, you deserve some credit for that. A little bit, not a lot, but you deserve some credit for that.
All right, thank you, thank you. Very good commentary. This is another component of attempting to make our organization more nimble, more flexible, have greater latitude, move projects through quicker, and of course, save time, which certainly is something that we can leverage in a way to be able to move those projects forward. And it does time, the old adage, time is money, so that does provide cost savings as well. So thank you, Mr. Watson. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move this item forward. Motion by Councilmember Hall, second by Councilmember Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. And that does conclude the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 28, 2024. I'll entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion by Councilmember Morthland, second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Now we go to work?